Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's Up With That, the show that brings you interesting people, places, cultures, and subcultures here in the South Bay, the San Francisco Bay Area, the state of California, and beyond. And tonight, what's up with Tiki Culture? What is Tiki Culture? And how is Tiki Culture represented here in the Bay Area and beyond? Well, aloha, half a day. Many of you may not know that I spent a lot of my life in Guam, in the islands, surfing, sitting on the beach, drinking Mai Tais, lays, all of that stuff. And it was a lot of fun. So tonight we're going to have a lot of fun learning about Tiki Culture from three people who are immersed in Tiki Culture here in the Bay Area. So get ready. Please welcome Martin Kate. He is the owner of Forbidden Island.
How you doing?
Aloha.
Aloha.
Is that like really corny?
No, not at all.
Will Ziliakis.
All right, nice to meet you.
He is the owner of Santa Cruz Tikis. Some of the wonderful art you're going to see here today. And then we have Mark Holt. How you doing? I can't reach you down there. What's up?
What's up?
And he is a tiki collector extraordinaire, and I understand a regular at your bar.
He is indeed.
So let's get going on. What exactly is Tiki Culture?
Tiki culture, or tiki, or it's kind of a, at least now, is a big term to refer to what's also called either tiki style or Polynesian pop. And what it is a mainland interpretation, a mid-century mainland interpretation of Polynesian island culture. It's not authentic, traditional, Marquesan or Hawaiian culture. It's an impression that was formed by people in the mainland about what the islands were like, and it's an impression that it started probably in the late 1930s, and then in the 40s got a real boost when all the GIs came back from the Pacific Theater, and they had some fond memories. Yeah.
Missing a few of the Mai Tais and lays.
Exactly. Well, they were missing the beach and the vahinis and all that good stuff, and then Michener's Tales of the South Pacific came out, became South Pacific the musical, which made a big splash, and then pretty soon Polynesian.
It's such a true depiction of South Pacific life.
Exactly. But it made a big splash, and it helped spread the style and the look of Polynesian pop art through restaurants and bars, apartment complexes, influenced fashion, a lot of aloha shirts, and then Hawaiian statehood coming in the 50s as well was a big factor as well, and so it lasted for many years.
So how did you all become interested in tiki?
You want to go?
Well, I think it's a deep repressed thing. So when I was a kid, right, we had to write these horror stories, right? And first horror story, I was kind of an awful writer, but I wrote this story about how this little tiki necklace, kind of like that with a full body, would come alive at night and kill people, and you'd
big bad
find it
tiki
by
boogeyman.
bloody footsteps. But it was that, and having shave ice businesses and traveling with the Warp Tour and using them as props. And then one day my wife bought me a chainsaw, and all of a sudden I'm this mad chainsaw carver. And tikis is pretty much all I do. Just like them, it's just one of those things.
Yeah. Well, they're very cool.
It's kind of like a surf kind of thing too.
Right.
It's a big, like being at the beach and surfing and liking to party and drink beers and stuff.
There's a lot of
all
crossover.
hand in hand,
And how about you?
It's kind of been an evolution. It started when I was a kid with the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland. Going to that, and then going to the islands with the Caribbean and the South Pacific, and then rum came along. And then musically with the 90s, there was a lot of the lounge music from the 50s and 60s that came along. And then in 2000, one of my friends gave me the Book of Tiki that had come out, and it kind of like, whoa, this all comes together. And then at that point, I'm just like, I'd been throwing some parties and stuff, and I was looking for a theme, and I'm like, I have a lot of this stuff, and I enjoy this, and I enjoy the rum, and hey, let's see what we can do with this.
Good,
and then bugs started collecting, and it just all kind of came together, and I was really into surf music and all that. So,
when you think of the tiki culture in media, what do you think people think of? What do they see in
I think people probably think a lot of things like Hawaii 5-0, which really kind of came really late, really post kind of the peak of Tiki.
Yeah.
But
well,
there's
that was
also
kind of one of those combinations where there are.
yeah. There was a show on in the 50s called Hawaiian Eye, which was it actually was filmed in Southern California. It was a kind of a thriller of the week, but it was supposedly set in Hawaii, and that played into everybody's fascination with Hawaiian statehood and all the people traveling. But I mean, we had beyond that. I mean, there was a lot of music that was a big deal. The exotica music, which came around, started coming around in the 50s, like Martin Denny, Les Baxter.
Yeah.
They were very popular in Hawaii. People starting to get affordable package tours to Hawaii.
Don Ho,
of course. After that, yeah. So there's it was just incredibly pervasive throughout the 50s and 60s in so many areas, television and in music. And
I think it has something to do also with people's need for fantasy,
absolutely.
need for escapism. I mean, you have to admit, life can be a little stressful sometimes. So what happens, let's talk about the Forbidden Island. If someone was to come into the Forbidden Island, what might they expect?
Well, escape is a big thing for us. And I mean, all the great tiki bars of the past and ourselves included, we like to, there's no windows. I don't want you to come in and look out across the street and see a drugstore or something like that. You need to have a complete immersive experience.
Right.
You escape, the music's, the lights are dim, the music's soft, there's some running water in the background. You really feel like it's dusk on Waikiki, it's an escape.
It's great.
And so, and then the cocktails are exotic, big flowers and garnishes and things. And you want to just leave outside. As a happy bonus, cell phones don't actually work in our bar. We have really thick walls. So, I mean, there's nothing to remind you that it's 2007 when you walk in the door. So all these elements, and it was a big thing, certainly for the man in the gray flannel suit, button down 1950s businessman, in a pretty strict society, to come and all of a sudden, he's got a flowered shirt and a lei, and he's got a big rum drink, and it's just a great way of escape. And and it fell out of favor, but now it's back, and I think for many of the same reasons. Yeah, exactly. People are looking for that escape.
It's part of the whole, the whole retro movement and stuff. Everyone is kind of going back to some of these things that were a lot of fun that for whatever reason, got kind of skirted out for a while.
Right.
So you do some wonderful carvings here.
Yeah, thank you.
And when you think of tiki in these carvings, what are you thinking when you begin your carving?
You know what? Normally, I kind of have an idea in mind. Like, I try to talk to the customer. Most of my clients, they're custom orders, and I want to find out if they want a full body or a face or a weird headpiece or a logo and then usually I start at the bottom of the mouth, and a lot of times I freehand them, so I just go for it with a chainsaw. So I start at the bottom and I work myself way up, and I kind of eyeball where's the medium, But quite often I also go to inspiration, such as this book is a great book for inspiration, the Book of Tiki, and certain websites such as Tiki Central and stuff also have great ideas.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of a business, so I kind of try to give the customer what they want, of course.
So let's talk about the customer. I love talking about this kind of stuff. So, what's one of the most unusual requests you've had from a customer?
Well, mostly when people want a tiki, they kind of want something like, like this, or a normal tiki kind of look. But probably the most unusual would be like, some of the bigger tikis I make, like 10 feet tall, 2 feet diameter, 1 ton tikis basically. And actually probably the most unusual one was Trader Vic's in Scottsdale. And they ordered these tikis that I had to carve shallow because they had to cut them in half.
Wow.
And then core them out and wrap them around a pole. So that was
cool.
probably my most unusual tiki.
And you're the collector.
I do have a fair amount of tiki stuff. I have about 230 some mugs of all types, including bowls. I have a lot of tiki art, stuff like Mark Ryden, Pele, and Exotica. A lot of shag. Shag's very popular with the cross with that 50s feel. Stuff like Doug Horn, Swamp Fire Lounge, like this one back here. A lot of neat stuff that he does with that. Fezzes, like the one next to you from Fezzarama. And a lot of books and Tiki News and Tiki Magazine and rums. I have 40 or 50 different rums, nothing compared to what Forbidden Island offers, but got to give you a reason to drive there. and there's a lot of great things to collect in that, in the whole tiki range. Music, lots of CDs, whether it's stuff from the lounge to the exotica, and the pendants, lots of these that the different artists make, to like what the tiki carvers are putting out. So really no shortage.
Yeah.
And then everyone just, if you go like on tikicentral.com and look around, people have their home bars and what they've done there.
So when you look for your stuff, where do you find it?
Combination. Some of it, there's websites like Tiki Farm. They're one of the biggest maker of tiki mugs in the world. There's some guys out of Pacifica, Monterey called Monk Tiki. They make a lot of these. And then there's a lot of classics from all the different bars and restaurants over the years, and well, there's eBay for that. There's also a lot of swap meets. There's get-togethers like an annual Tiki Oasis, and then the Hukilau in Florida. There's swap meets like a Forbidden Island that they have, where people come in and vend a lot of these things, and people, there's a lot of collectors out there, and they all have these things, and there's a lot of people that have a lot of creative ideas, and they're making their own mugs, and they're putting them out there, working with companies like Tiki Farm.
Cool.
So you have the sites, and then a lot of times people put them up on Tiki Central because they want people that are into tiki to get them instead of just putting them out on eBay. And you just get to know people, and they're like, hey, I got this mug I'm thinking of selling, so.
And they call you, huh?
Yep, you got your wish list up on, there's a website called Ooga Mooga where you can put pictures of all your mugs, and then you can put a wish list. And I mean, there's thousands of mugs up there, and you're like, hey, I'm looking for that one, and people will either trade or sell, or they just give you a call.
That's very cool.
And then you just drink enough at Forbidden Island, and people who make mugs come in there.
And you buy it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, 10 years ago, you could find all the vintage mugs were, 10 for $1. Well, I'm exaggerating, but I mean, they were in the thrift stores, they were in the Goodwills and Salvation Armies, and they just were kind of what people found in their basements or in their attics after having gone and gotten the souvenir mug from the restaurant back in the 50s, and they, maybe you found it in your grandma's house, or you didn't think anything about it, and then they all just, so they were everywhere, and then, boy, you'd be real lucky to find one today.
Yeah,
one
it's
of the vintage
amazing,
ones.
huh?
Yeah, they're really, really sought after now. So.
Okay, we'll be coming back to talk tiki. So stick with us. What's up with that? We're talking tiki tonight.
What's in the package, Doctor? Volcano bowl. Doctor, what are your orders? Nice work, Johnny. Johnny, what's next, Lulu?
We set it on fire.
And now?
Oh, c'est ça.
We've done it!
All right, we're back here with What's Up With That. We're talking about tiki, and we've just seen some pictures of Forbidden Island in Alameda. It looks like an awesome bar. People are getting down, having a good time. Let's talk about the tiki person who comes to the bars or buys the wonderful statues and masks, and the collector. Are there any commonalities between tiki people? Is there a certain...
That's what makes the whole, this one of the things that makes the scene so much fun is that a lot of people have a lot of different interests. People really love collecting the vintage stuff. People like creating the artwork, paintings, the carvings, necklaces. People are into it for the cocktails, the history of these great tiki drinks, and what used to, how these used to be made,
Right.
virtually lost recipes. And so there's a lot of different interests that kind of attract everybody, and it's just, so you meet, when you all meet together, it's, I suppose, I don't know what the common tie-ins, but one thing that's certainly common is that a lot of them really enjoy tiki bars. And so, you know, when you've got something that's sociable as a bar, and certainly with a little cocktails and everybody, you get it's just a naturally gregarious group of people.
Right.
Yeah.
It gets a little wild and crazy
Oh,
there.
it can.
Yeah. Also, I know I'm looking at a webpage, which was really cool, or the Tiki Party webpage. Reminded me kind of a lot of something I might see, you know, sort of kind of, not so much Burning Man-ish, but sort of, you know, people going there to have a festive party. Let's talk about events, okay? What happens at events?
Well, at events, there's a lot of, you know, there's some big events around the country. There's Hukilau in Florida, which is huge. Tiki Oasis in Southern California. We do a Bay Area Tiki Bar Crawl every year. And what happens is just a lot of folks coming together, sharing common interests, talking about you know, their latest finds, do a little swap meet like Mark was talking about, you know, talking about their finds. Popular hobby is what we call, the author of Book of Tiki calls urban archaeology, is sort of unearthing the old, you know, trying to find the ruins of an old 1950s tiki bar or a tiki temple or something like that. So yeah, I think people get a lot of fun out of that, you know, and looking for the old stuff, going to swap meets, hunting down for old menus or mugs or whatever. And so I think I don't know, the events are really very, very sociable and outgoing, people having a good time, and it's not, I don't know what a comparable thing would be. I don't want to cast any aspersions on any other groups or interests. But I mean, it just tends to be a very. I've found it for many years now to be just a very social, very sociable,
a very creative bunch.
and
too.
very creative.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you see so many people on Tiki Central. I made this. I did this bar.
Absolutely.
Tiki carving. Very, very creative bunch. And I think you add that, and then you add in the rum, and then the socialness, and then everyone goes to events, and
everyone's kind of a little
Partier,
bit
drinker.
buzzed
Yeah.
and ready to go.
With their-
Well, that makes for a great event, actually.
well, I mean,
like-
you talk about things like the Bay Area Tiki Crawl. I mean, Tiki Oasis right now, they're planning the room crawl.
Yeah, what is
where
that, by
it's
the
like
way?
90 rooms people
Progressive
go.
party,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, Tiki Oasis is an annual event that is now, it used to be in Palm Springs, now it's in San Diego, and they book out this entire hotel that used to be called the Hanalei Hotel. It has a lot of tikis on the grounds. It's a 1950s hotel. And they book out the whole place, and then during the time there'll be tiki bands, surf bands, vendors, artists, carvings, and it's just everyone's, you know, taking over the whole hotel and going from room to room and having a good time. And
Everyone
it's
decorates their room.
Everyone,
and-
brings people bring fish floats and nets and decorate their space, and you know, everyone brings a full wet bar into their
cool.
rooms and makes exotic cocktails, and it's just this, you know, a 4-day party down in San Diego. This year.
A massive party, huh?
Yeah.
So is there competition, a lot of competition amongst certain tiki enthusiasts? Is there like clubs or any kind of groups that, you know, try to outdo each other, or known for setting up big, I mean, I would think there would be.
I think there's a little bit, but it's not too much. It's
more
pretty
friendly.
It is more friendly competition. It's a little more of a low-key group. I think you see the most competition you see is bidding on eBay for mugs, you know, getting into bidding wars and things. You see that, certainly.
You see things like the severed head mug. People do tributes to. It's a mug that is like $1,200 or $1,500 on eBay, but artists have gone like, "Hey, I've made my interpretation of
adaptation,
it."
yeah.
And I mean, it's not competition per se, but it's like, "Hey, check out what I've done," and you see a few others where they're like, "Here's how I interpreted it," just showing what they can do. And
So
then
what
within
else?
the mugs, there's some pretty cool stuff. What people.
But you do see it a lot in the carving.
Yeah.
They have this whole traditional versus like non-traditional
I
tikis.
bet,
And
yeah.
if you look at mine, they're non-traditional because personally I think it's kind of bad manners to copy somebody's god. But
Right.
you know, we could talk about that, and I'll piss off a lot of people.
Well, yeah,
But,
I mean,
Now,
there's a
between the
whole-
carvers, there's a little bit of competition, and I mean, I never go to these big events because you know you have to have some kind of inventory, which I hardly ever do. So, but I've talked to other tiki carvers that have been pretty bitter with you know, with each other, and so
Well, I'm glad you don't actually piss off the gods. You know,
Yeah.
where I come from with tikis, and they had different names from, but they, you know, they're made for. A lot of them are made to when someone dies, their spirit goes into them. They're made for to keep people's spirits out, so they have it's a whole different. So I think
Well, it's, you know, it's
Like the
also
big
the
teeth
culture, you know, it's like you don't want to go and carve a Maori god
No.
because they still practice that. It's
Right.
kind of
You wake up
like
and-
what I call bad manners, you know, kind
Yeah.
of like if you surf when somebody paddles around you, it's bad manners.
You wake up and like one of your eyes is down here. And it's
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
No. I mean, I should have watched the Brady
We
Bunch
believe
movie,
that
I
stuff,
guess,
okay?
or something like that. Yeah.
So at the events, okay, so you have the bars set up in different rooms. What kind of crazies happen at these things? I mean, let's talk tiki here. Let's get down to the gritty here. I mean, like,
Wow.
There's a lot of like burlesque things I see.
There's a lot of
like,
burlesque. There's the guy who organizes Tiki Oasis. He and his spouse are also active in the burlesque scene, so there tends to be a lot of overlap with burlesque performers and things. So there's a lot of burlesque performers on site, and so there's some of that. It's you know, it's the same kind of craziness I suppose you'd find anywhere where you put 600 people in the same place and get them all drunk at the same time.
yeah,
you know.
it's a
But you know what?
good
you know,
place to be, huh?
I mean, what happens at Tiki Oasis stays at Tiki Oasis.
Yeah.
I guess so. We can't talk too much
yes,
out
we're
of
not going
turn.
to talk about any of the pagan rituals.
Yeah,
exactly.
So another element in tiki, and I think the element that probably people identify with real strongly too, is tiki music, the ukulele and all that kind of stuff. How much of that is occurs at your bar, and how much of that is immersed in all of these events? Is it a big thing? Is it a big?
I'd say it's a big part of it. I think all the major events have live performers. They're either exotica bands playing music like Les Baxter Martinelli, bands like Waitiki and Robert Drasnin, who is actually one of the original exotica guys who's still performing. Plenty of surf music, a little bit of Caribbean music, not much though. Really, the focus is still more towards the California and the South Pacific, and yeah, music plays a big part. Our jukebox at Forbidden Island is all basically vintage. It's 1965 and older, but we branch out a little beyond exotica and things. We have old jazz and blues and garage rock and British Invasion, things like that. So it's just to provide a soundtrack that's period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And you also see a lot of crossover with the rockabilly scene, with the more modern tiki. You see a lot of the events, whether it's the burlesque or the Reverend Horton Heat type stuff that really starts to get in there, kind of with the lounge and the exotic as you're talking about.
So there's not per se like a lot of traditional Hawaiian music, or
There's some, but
Yeah, there
it's,
is.
there's definitely some in traditional ukulele music. There's a couple of bands that play what they call the Hapa Haole music, which is this music that was written by Howleys in the islands in the 20s and 30s. There's a great band out of Napa called the Maikai Gents that play this music, just traditional stylings, and it's so there's definitely some of that too. That's a good point.
what about like hula or any of that kind of stuff?
Usually there's, at any of these events, there's usually maybe down in San Diego or up here, there's usually a local hula school that comes in and does a performance and things like that. We had a Tahitian dance troupe perform when we had our grand opening.
Yeah.
Tahitian, based in Alameda, that came in and did a dance.
That's very
for-
cool.
Yeah,
I have a friend who's learned for my annual tiki parties to fire dance.
I'm a
Just
fire
'cause
dancer,
that-
by the way.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
she
learned
took some
fire
classes
dancing
in
as a
that,
kid.
and it's a nice addition to it, as long as it doesn't burn down the neighborhood. But
Yeah.
There's a
Which you can
couple-
potentially do.
yes, you can. We had to take a class also in fire safety.
Yeah.
There's a couple big name bands that are pretty much into tiki too, like Smash Mouth. Those guys
yeah.
love tikis, and they're actually customers. They
San Jose's
they
own
buy
Smash
tikis,
Mouth.
and then like Fu Manchu. So you see them on album
Yeah.
covers a lot.
Yeah.
So it's
But that's more like a rock
Actually,
kind of.
so it's moving its way into the mainstream,
I think
big
it
time.
is. Yeah.
Very much so.
which can be a good thing or a bad thing, for some, sometimes.
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet. Yeah. I like that. Bittersweet. I guess that. How about the whole Hawaiian shirt and there's there's a big it appears to me there must be a humongous kind of marketing.
Vintage Aloha,
Thing.
where at some places shirts can command $3,000-4,000, which is crazy. But there's a real demand. There's a real collector's market for the vintage stuff out there. It's just that's one thing that just never went away. The great Aloha shirt is
Right.
just a time-honored tradition that
It's comfortable.
Never goes out of
it's
style.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that, Okay, we have only a couple minutes, and what I'd like you guys to each say? It's something for the aspiring Tiki fan or the one out here who's very interested right now in becoming a Tiki enthusiast or whatever. What do you say to that person?
First thing I say to that person is the book to check out is called the Book of Tiki, which is right here. There's also a smaller, lighter version of it called Tiki Style, which is more of kind of an encapsulated version. Give you a great overview of the ideas, the movement, the art, the look, the feel. After that, you want to branch out to Tiki Central online, where you'll find a great online community. There's Tiki Magazine, published in Southern California, which offers great articles and lots of great advertising from carvers and artists and things. There's Kritiki, which is a website that shows that is a great guide to bars, past and present. You can find them when you're traveling. And yeah, so I mean, those are all great places to start.
My advice is go to Hawaii and go enjoy yourself and check out the city of
That's
refuge.
right, seriously.
Check out the city of refuge and kind of immerse yourself, like see what it's about a little bit. Get a little bit buzzed on the beach and kind of look at them, and they'll kind of talk to you, And
wake up and you like wonder what's going on.
Yeah, live the lifestyle
Where am
a little
I?
bit. And then also, check out these books and Tiki. There's a lot of Tiki stuff out there now.
How about you?
I would definitely echo what Martin said. Tiki Central and the Book of Tiki, I mean, that's really what got me going on this. At the same time, surf around on some of these sites, try out some of the things, try the drinks, go to your local restaurants.
Have a good time, right?
And just relax and enjoy yourself.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. Hopefully this has got our audience excited about Tiki. Make sure you check out the Forbidden Island, check out the book, go around and look for some stuff and start your Tiki hut in your own house. And to you, thank you so much for coming all the way down here and sharing your information with us. And to our viewing audience, I hope you learned something tonight. Get ready to have a good Tiki time. And as always, if you're walking down the street and you see something interesting and you wonder to yourself, hey, what's up with that? Well, tune into our show, What's Up With That, and maybe you'll find exactly what you're looking for. We'll see you next week, and What's Up With That? Good night, everybody.
We need an explosion.
We're too compressed. A bomb will expand our bandwidth and band height, slide us through the internet into stardom.
Exactly.
I'll whip up a bomb like Chicken Eastman.
We don't need any chicken easement. What we need is a drink.
Let's get some rum.
Oh, we're gonna need beer for this bomb. A right proper bomb. What kind of bar is this? You don't have any beer of any kind? Well, I guess in a pinch you could use some of mine. Usually care more, but I got thirsty.
In a pint glass, prepare 8 ounces of beer and 4 ounces of non-specified cola beverage. And then splash in half an ounce of cherry brandy. In a shot glass, double size, prepare 1 ounce of Kahlua, 1 ounce of amaretto.